Hello and welcome back to our Save a Seat series here on Patreon. I'm your podcast host, Chloe, and we are continuing our Issue 9 Identity Contributor Chat series. As you guys may know, if you've been listening to these for a little bit now, Issue 9 launched on, October 18th officially, I believe. So if you don't have your copy yet, make sure you pick that up. As of this recording, it has not launched, so I'm, forward dating a little bit, but hopefully you got your issue of that. You were able to join us for the pre-launch happy hour. And today I am joined by some wonderful women who contributed to our piece, Navigating Menopause. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining me again on this podcast.
Thank you.
All right. So, for the people that did not listen to our Spotify episode, I would love for you guys to go around and introduce yourselves again. So, let's start with you, Marley, the author, the contributor for our Navigating Menopause series.
Yeah, so I am Marley Bruno. I'm a board certified physician assistant. I own Mind, Body, and Soul Medical, which is a aesthetics and wellness practice in Pensacola, Florida. I'm also a life and business coach. I have a huge heart for talking about menopause, so I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, we're so glad that we could do this piece because, as we mentioned in the first episode, it's so important to start these dialogues and get people talking about it. How about you, Betty?
Hi, I'm Betty Smith. I'm a management consultant. I'm the owner of Duster Consulting Group, and I've been doing this work with a lot of passion for the last 20 years. And I partner with organizations from small nonprofits to large Fortune 500 companies in the space of leadership development and change management.
Amazing. And how about you, Danielle?
Hi, my name is Danielle Berry. I am a marketing manager at a local boutique hotel. I love to work with people. Being in hospitality is kind of my bread and butter. Getting out there and helping people identify and share their brand is kind of what I do best.
I love it. And you, Teresa?
I'm Teresa Reynolds. I am an Indianapolis local singer, actor, director, artist, and kind of a all things creative kind of gal.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, Marley was our contributor, our writer for this article. Betty and Teresa were our fabulous models. And as Teresa said, I believe, the faces of menopause for our purposes. And Danielle was our amazing creative director. So it was so cool to see this all come together, in pieces and then be this like beautiful, cohesive thing by the end of it that I feel like is so impactful. And hopefully, if you already have your copy of issue 9, you have seen this beautiful piece and you agree. So we were so happy to have this all come together. But I want to ask a general question first that I feel like everybody could contribute to, and that's how can we start more conversations around menopause so that the women in our lives have a better understanding and a better comfort as they start this journey, and we destigmatize it more and more. Obviously, this article was a great start, but where can we go from here?
So I know for me that I can have more conversations in office with patients one on one. I feel like some people do really, really great in a one on one conversation. And also those people with little more outgoing personalities, like Teresa, for example. Like if you're a singer and you're used to being in the spotlight and you're used to being on stage, we can use those. I'm that way too. So we can use those platforms to speak more openly about it to make it feel more comfortable for women who maybe aren't as comfortable doing that, because like we said last time, this is like 50% of the population is going to go through this.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, just because I was going through perimenopause for such a long time, a lot of my friends and family knew of my struggle because it really was a struggle at points until I figured out what I needed to do. And so it's been really lovely to be a resource to a lot of people. And I also did a lot of research, and it sounds like Teresa, you did as well. And so I think that's a great thing to do. I also think it's important. So I just have one child, and he's a boy, he's 18. But I've talked to him about all those things all along. And I think the more that men and young men know about women's bodies, the better we all are.
Absolutely. Like educate them too, right?
Mhm.
So they can help their wives and their
Yeah.
moms and their daughters and their cousins and their nieces. Like they should carry the weight as well, the same way that we do for them.
Yeah. I think that's I didn't even think about that, Marley, about how, I do have a platform, and so there is opportunity to kind of have these conversations, and it's something that I've struggled with, about do I want to do that? And especially in, the entertainment industry is so youth obsessed, um
Mhm.
and am I giving up some of my power in engaging in those conversations, and I only am if I allow myself to, right? So
Mhm.
if I claim my power as, a woman in control of her out of control body, then and it's only out of control if I don't understand it.
Mm.
um
Mhm.
and so I think, yeah, just having those conversations, and especially as, I'm 43 right now, and my peers were, we're right there, and maybe some of them are starting to feel some symptoms, and so it could be so empowering to have somebody, you know, in their shoes, and that's not afraid to talk about it. So, thanks for that, Marley.
Of course.
Teresa, you also brought up an interesting point in our previous episode that, once it began happening to you, you started seeking it out, right? Like following doctors and influencers who talked about it more, like getting it into your algorithm, right? And
Yeah.
if it doesn't pertain to you, it's probably not going to pop into your algorithm. But if you seek it out and you like seek that education, it's going to start happening. So, uplifting those voices to your friends and people who follow you, like, educate yourself, learn about this because if you are a person with a uterus, it's coming for you, right?
Mhm.
So you might as well make it your business.
I mean, if you're really interested, there's a fabulous podcast. It's Dr. Stryker's Inside Info, the menopause podcast, and she's phenomenal. I mean, she knows so much, and her podcasts are fun, and she interviews all kinds of amazing people about menopause experience, and other. She interviews other doctors as well.
Yeah. And Marley, I would be curious to hear, from a clinical standpoint, because I keep saying people with uteruses because I don't want to exclude anybody by saying women, right? But
Sure.
Mhm.
it's also very possible that someone has had a hysterectomy and they are still going through menopause. Have you found in your experience that that changes things for them?
So you mean patients who were like young and had a hysterectomy?
Yeah, and then they went through menopause?
Right. So it's interesting because when Betty said earlier, like the average age is about 50, 52. So, but there are still women who, I mean, we have women that are 22 years old that come to this practice and they've already had a hysterectomy, whether or not they've had children already. So they're already in menopause in their 20s, if you can imagine that. So talk about the identity stuff that goes along with it. Talk about the symptoms that goes along with that. So it's not really age dependent anymore with, we're discovering ovarian cancers, uterine cancers younger sometimes nowadays. So this is something that we really need to speak about. So yes, it's definitely something that we talk about in clinic for sure.
Yeah. So I want to pivot over to Betty and Teresa. What did you wish that you knew about menopause before it began? Obviously, Teresa, you covered in the first episode, you wish someone had told you maybe it could be coming for you early. Or like Betty, I mentioned that it blew my mind a little bit that you could be in those pre stages for 10 years. But are there other things about it that surprised you? It could be, good or bad.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Teresa. Do
Go
you want
ahead.
to go? Yeah, I was just saying it's kind of, yeah, it's a both and, right? So as I mentioned, I did struggle. I had symptoms for a long time. I wish I had known how many and varied the symptoms are.
Mm,
Because I think there were things that I ended up going to see the doctor about that actually were hormonal, but wasn't putting them in the same category as like a night sweat.
right.
And once I hit, so it was about 7 years ago, I was having all the symptoms, and I really wasn't functional.
Mm,
And that's when I finally realized that I needed to find a practitioner who would really listen to me. I was so fortunate. I found someone who spent over an hour with me in my intake visit and really laid out all of the options. And she's a kind and generous person. But I would also say for women who are looking for resources, or the Menopause Society's website is fantastic, and you can find a practitioner who's either a member of that society or is certified by them, and so they'll help you find someone who really knows what they're talking about.
Amazing. We